All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's public webinar about our Broadband Mapping Fabric project. We're excited to share and walk you through this information and resources. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. So to give you a rundown of what the agenda is going to look like for this webinar, we'll of course start with introductions for Aaron, Adam, and I. And then we'll discuss our project overview of how you can help us identify broadband gaps and express local needs to the FCC by understanding this broadband fabric map and kind of what this project entails. Then we'll discuss the FCC broadband fabric and show you how to access and manipulate the FCC broadband fabric map, for which we will also show you during our demo later on in this webinar. Then we'll move on to discussing NCDIT's broadband efforts to highlight the resources being pushed out by the NC Department of Information Technology to tackle broadband and digital equity. Then we'll move on to discussing local efforts of how organizations across the Piedmont Triad are actively addressing broadband and digital equity by serving as digital navigators. Then we'll discuss making individual challenges and kind of the overview of that, to go over the different types of challenges within location points, fixed broadband services, and mobile broadband coverage. Then we'll get to the fun part and run a demo to walk you through the steps and processes for identifying and making the necessary challenges to the fabric, which is extremely crucial, and focus for this project. Then we'll have a Q&A session to address any questions or concerns that may come up while you're going along the webinar and learning about this, and we'll also provide that guidance towards how these steps and processes work and what they look like. Before getting started, we do kind of want to go over a little bit of Zoom etiquette here. So to help this webinar run as smoothly as possible, please consider the following. You may choose to disconnect from any VPN or third-party connections during the meeting, just to ensure you maintain strong connectivity. And while speakers are presenting, please feel free to use the chat feature to send any questions that you may think of during this webinar. Because I know once we start going over the information and getting into the nitty-gritty, the FCC broadband fabric, you might have a lot of ideas come to your mind. Just throw them in the chat so you don't forget them. I know we're going to be dropping a lot of links in the chat all throughout the webinar, so we're going to be utilizing this feature, and we encourage you to do so as well. And if you think closed captions would be helpful, you should be able to click the settings and accessibility tab to have those turned on, and we'll kind of go from there with our etiquette here. This is a friendly reminder that the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the PTRC website. Hopefully as soon as next week, if not within the next couple of weeks. That way you can come back to this webinar and reference it, because you're going to be seeing a lot of neat resources and fun tools that we want you to definitely have in your pocket and be able to reference as you need them when you go beyond this webinar today. So running into introductions. So hello again, I'm Garrett Dinkins. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator here at the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, or PTRC. I grew up in Yadkin County and am UNCG alumni, so I've always been deeply rooted here in the Piedmont Triad region. And now I'm at PTRC so I can continue my love for the area and continue to work with the great communities here. As a quick introduction to PTRC, because some of you might be the first time you're hearing PTRC or the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. So PTRC is a voluntary association of local governments across the 12-county Piedmont Triad region. We provide technical assistance with grant management, special projects, and manage programs within areas such as aging, criminal justice, community development, regional planning, and workforce and economic development. So of course, I am part of the Workforce and Economic Development Department, which brought you today's webinar about this awesome project, and we want to ensure that everyone knows about these resources. And clearly, we need you to help us make challenges and keep everyone honest with this process. So again, we're excited to share this with you today. And with that, I'm going to pass it over and let Aaron and Adam introduce themselves.
Hi there. Good morning or afternoon. Sorry, my bad. So thank you, Garrett, for that introduction. We are very happy to be here to talk about this project today and ways that you can help as a consumer or a member of the public. First of all, I'll just mention that HDR is an employee-owned design firm specializing in architecture, engineering, environmental, and construction services. Our goals for this project and all of our projects is to always help communities move forward. So my name is Erin Koch, and I'm the project manager for HDR on this project, the Broadband Fabric Mapping. I have 22 years experience in mapping in the geographic information systems field. The last 7 have been with HDR leading multidisciplinary projects. Prior to HDR, I was a GIS manager with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, Land and Marine Divisions. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And now I'll toss it to Adam to introduce himself.
Thank you, Aaron. Hey, I'm Adam Feigl. I'm a Senior Geographic Information Systems or GIS Analyst with HDR and Deputy Project Manager on this project. I'm originally from the Charlotte area, went to UNC Charlotte, studied geography, urban studies, GIS, planning. So I have a love for the Carolinas. I have over 20 years of experience developing mapping solutions for city and county governments, regional planning initiatives, and even broadband network design. And with that, I'll toss it back to Garrett.
All right. Thank you, Adam and Aaron. That was great introductions. And I must say they've been a lot of fun to work with with this project. So definitely kudos to them for helping us get this far. So moving on to our next slide here. So with the project overview, so to kind of how did we get here? PTRC, we received a grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, or EDA, to conduct an extensive broadband assessment for the Piedmont Triad region. So some of the goals that's expanded from this grant and this vision of this project is to assist county and local governments to understand the FCC broadband challenge process and the broadband data collection system, and to also verify that broadband serviceable locations and availability data are accurately represented in the FCC fabric for the Piedmont Triad region. Another goal that spun off is to develop a mapping application tool and recommendations moving forward. We will explore a little bit more of that goal in the March 6th webinar, but for today, we're going to kind of focus on how county and local governments, how you can help us and give you those tools to make these challenges. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to run you through some of the rest of this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Garrett. So we are going to start at the federal level. So the FCC Broadband Data Collection System, also known as BDC, consists of 2 data sets. One are the broadband serviceable locations, aka your house, and the other is a data set provided by internet service providers where they report that they have internet services available to customers. So your internet service providers are anyone from your Spectrum, Comcast, cable providers, fiber is considered broadband, and even satellite. Sometimes people are accessing the internet using that out in rural areas. So that's internet service providers. So the FCC reviews these data and any challenges made to the data periodically and publishes it on the National Broadband Map. Individual consumers, aka the public, can challenge or dispute information shown on the map that you believe to be inaccurate. So why is this important? An accurate map fabric and broadband internet availability can help the state identify unserved and underserved communities that are most in need of funding for high-speed internet infrastructure or investments. So the FCC defines an unserved location as one without any broadband service or with very low speeds. An underserved location is one offering only low speeds that are not compatible with today's internet-centric society. So distinguishing between these categories offers two benefits. It helps lawmakers prioritize funding decisions, and it also decreases the likelihood that funds are spent on outdated technology. So in the past, funding has been made available for things like bringing service to an area, programs to help with affordability of broadband, purchasing devices, and also specialized training for using technology. So Chris is going to drop the first link, I think, in our chat today, and that will take you to the broadband program that kind of gives you an overview of what they're doing, the FCC is doing on a federal level. So Garrett, you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's kind of a preview of the National Broadband Map. The address for that is broadbandmap.fcc.gov. And this is kind of a sneak peek of what we're going to dive into during our demo portion of the webinar. But first, I just wanted to talk about some state resources in North Carolina for individual consumers and communities alike. Next slide, please, Garrett. Awesome, thank you. So in North Carolina, it's estimated that 1.1 million households lack access to high-speed internet, cannot afford it, or do not have the skills needed to take advantage of the digital economy. The North Carolina Department of Information Technology, Division of Broadband and Digital Equity Office have done a tremendous amount of work looking for ways to close what we call the digital divide and increasing digital equity for consumers. So you can find more info about these specific programs, like you see here in this screenshot. You can get help with internet bills, find Wi-Fi, and other ways to connect. So Chris will drop a link in the chat for that. The Broadband Division of Broadband and Digital Equity. Next slide, please, Garrett. So one of the highlights that I wanted to, one thing I wanted to highlight from the NCDIT is the Community Broadband Planning Playbook. If you are an individual looking to help your community in a larger capacity, they have a lot of great resources here. It provides tools needed to follow their technical assistance team, guidance to help expand broadband access in your communities. So these are functional resources that help you, A, identify your needs, B, take stock of your assets, C, find strengths and weaknesses, D, you can establish goals and create and implement policies in your community. So if you are involved in your community on more than just a citizen consumer capacity, I urge you to visit that website. And I think Chris is going to pop that in there too. Thank you, Chris, for all of your help. Okay, next slide. So one thing that you can do that will help the NCDIT is they have a survey that you can take from your home that will pair your location with a report of slow or no internet. So the survey that you can access here, which is northcarolinabroadband.gov/survey, is going to ask you questions about your location, how you access the internet, the technology that you're using. Is it cable? Is it fiber? Is it cellular, satellite? It will also perform a speed test and ask you what your costs are for the internet. So the data collected here goes directly to the state, and it helps them have a granular data point that can help inform areas that may need to be challenged to the FCC on the community's behalf. So it helps inform this broadband fabric. So we encourage you to do that if you haven't already. It's open all the time. You can take the survey anytime. Okay, next slide, Garrett. Okay. And finally, now we're getting down. We've done federal, we've done state, and now we're just going to highlight a few local organizations. There's going to be others in your community. I would say your local library is going to be a good place to ask for resources to help you access high-speed internet effectively. So we're going to highlight the first one, which is the RHRNP Right Here, Right Now project, is helping to address digital literacy, digital literacy skills in Alamance, Rockingham, and Chatham counties, North Carolina. They have digital navigators who assist the community members with services including ongoing assistance for affordable internet access, device acquisition, technical training skills, and application support. The one in the middle is Digital Bridges Forsyth, which is led by Winston Net.Inc. They're a nonprofit community technology organization. The group developed the county's digital equity plan and is striving to be the prototype for the nation, partnering with many of the area's major academic, public, community, and private institutions. And they are coordinating resources that strengthen community technology centers and educational quality to help prepare the workforce for the next generation of network-based computer technologies. And finally, another one we found was the Randolph Senior Adults Association. This is just an example of a local nonprofit organization. They've been serving Randolph County since 1975. That's a long time. It's an organization of individuals interested in improving the quality of life for Randolph County residents who are 50 years of age or older and serving as advocates on their behalf. So the RSAA provides access information about information technology services. And so, yeah, if they are representing your community, just know that they are there. And again, if you are looking for a local organization to help you with broadband access, I would say your local library is going to be a good place to start. All right, so next slide. All right, awesome. So now we are going to place the focus back on the FCC National Broadband Map and what you can actually do with it. Like we mentioned in the overview, the FCC created this mapping platform to be able to see where access to high quality internet is reported by internet service providers, and it gives consumers the opportunity to challenge or dispute. We're using that word interchangeably here, the information that they have in their system. So like shown in the graphic here, there's two types of challenges that an individual consumer can make to the data. So on the left-hand side, the fabric location, that's going to be, geographically, that is like your house is what they consider a fabric location. So we're going to go into some detail about what challenges to that would look like. And then the other data set is the broadband availability, and you're able to challenge that in another set of ways. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk about the challenge types. We're going to kind of do an overview. You can go to the next slide, Garrett. We're just going to run through what examples of these challenges are. And then he's going to jump into a demo and actually show you how to do that on the FCC map. So take it away, Adam.
Thank you, Erin. If everybody can see the slide here, it says fabric location challenge type. So as Erin was saying in the previous slide, there are two different types of challenges. There's the fabric location challenge type and the fixed availability challenge type. The fabric location challenge type is more like, I would put it more geographically oriented. As you can see on these slides, on this slide, one of the challenges is a new BSL. A BSL is a broadband serviceable location, or any place that can have broadband. Your house, another house on your property, or an apartment, duplex, so on and so forth. If the dot, for example, as you'll see on the demo, doesn't show up and it's not there, and you have internet, that would be a new broadband service location. That would be a challenge. Address changes, unit counts, building types, residential or commercial, the BSL location itself, For example, if the dot on your map is for your address, but it's on your neighbor's property, that will need to be a challenge to move it to your property. If there's an abandoned structure that the fabric, the online broadband map says has internet, and the house is no more or abandoned, it should be removed. So that would be a challenge. Additional addresses and remove your secondary address. These would be for anything that, if you have a parcel with multiple addresses on it, these would be considered secondary addresses. So to make sure that they're linked with the one specific point on the map. Next slide, please. Fixed availability challenges. This is less geographic and more, do you have the connection that you need? A lot of these are more service oriented. For example, the first challenge here, failed to schedule installation. I mean, a provider failed to schedule a service installation within 10 business days of the request. That'd be a challenge. The ISP or the internet service provider is not living up to their name, and you're not able to get the installation you need. Therefore, you would challenge that. On the right in the table here, you'll see evidence. So for every challenge, you'll need evidence to show basically that your challenge is legit. And so screenshots of email correspondence, or you can print them out, online chat communications with the provider, basically a narrative, or you can write a paragraph including date and time requested and description of your interaction with the provider. You'll notice that a lot of these are duplicates across the board. Most of the time, evidence is really up to you. It's just what you need to be able to prove your case to the FCC. Not installed in time is another challenge. If the installation cost is outrageous compared to others, that's another denied service request. If you've been denied, but yet the provider on their website, for example, you can type into some ISPs like Spectrum and stuff, and then you can type in, hey, are you available in my location? There you go, yes, and then they deny it. You can pretty much just say, hey, I was denied, and take a screenshot of that and send that. Next slide, please. The technology or service is not offered. That's basically a little tougher to challenge because a lot of us don't really know what technology is in our area. But if we do, and you have that information, you can challenge that. And then there's internet speeds, reported speed not available. If they promote broadband in your area, they have new fiber that they put in, and then yet your speed is not up to what they have reported. That is a challenge. Next slide, please. And then subscribed speed not available. So if you subscribe for broadband but only get, for example, like mobile dial-up speed type internet, then that would be a challenge as well. The trick on these, though, with speed test is the FCC. We talked to the FCC, and they're very cautious about speed tests because you can manipulate speed tests inside your home by having lots of devices, uploading, downloading from your router, or not going straight from the source. So check with your neighbors, check with anybody nearby, see if everybody has the same problems with their speeds. In this case, speed tests are very welcomed for FCC challenges when it is more than one. So I encourage everybody to do it, to talk with their neighbors about their speeds. And if everybody together, everybody can challenge at once, and that will definitely help fix the problem a lot quicker. No wireless satellite available. That's another one. Non-standard equipment required, and no provider in your area. Next slide, please. And with that, toss it back to Aaron.
Thank you, Adam, for that detailed explanation of the challenge types. So yeah, now I'm just going to kind of lead up to the demo here. So what we're going to do a stepwise. So we're going to show you the broadband map, and then we're going to show you how you can create an account to track your challenges. And then we'll show you how to find your address, how to review the information, and then create a location challenge or create an availability challenge, or both. I guess you could do both. So yeah, we're just going to kind of walk you through the steps and show you how the National Broadband Map works. Next slide. Well, actually, there you go. It's the demo.
Okay.
We have reached the demo portion.
So I'm going to share my screen here. And if everybody can see my screen okay.
Thumbs
so
up.
If you type in,
see it.
You can see it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into Google or whatever your search engine is and type in FCC broadband map, you'll see broadbandmap.fcc.gov. That is the site you're looking for, the FCC National Broadband Map. That will lead you to this page. In order to sign in, we encourage everybody to sign in when they make the challenges so they can track them. On the right, you'll see sign in here. You agree to that. And then if you already signed in, you can have your username and password, or you can, on the bottom right here, create an account. And then if you want to go back to once you're done with that, you can search by address. We're going to pick an address. So you can type in your own address or a neighbor's address that you're helping challenge. And here we go. As you see all these green dots on here, that means if you scroll down here, the map legend coverage is available. You'll see some red dots with a little white in it. It's coverage not available. And then if it's gray, not a mass market location. These are your community anchor institutions, schools, hospitals, government sites. So a lot of them are not, they either have their own private broadband or they're just not considered mass market. If you click on a dot, you'll see the house, the footprint, and the streets. You can change your to an aerial view, like a satellite view, so that you can get a better view of the house. Over here you'll see two tabs, fixed broadband and mobile broadband on the address. As you see, it says it's served. It says it's a unit count of 1, so it's a single family residential. And has cable technology hooked up or broadband at 1,000 megabytes per minute or per second. And then that would be from Charter Communications. And so on and so forth. You see available satellite, available fixed wireless, and so on and so forth. And you may be thinking, what's the difference between the fixed? And so fixed is basically like a line to your house. So we'll go over mobile a little bit too, but fixed is more not wireless. It's just kind of, it's still a landline, even though it says wireless. It's kind of fixed to your location with a router and a modem. So and then anyway, to do a challenge, you can do a location challenge. You can click on this here, enter your name, your email, your phone number, category. So as I went over before, there's different types of categories that you can go for a location challenge. Let's say this is a location is not within the correct building footprint, because the house, this used to be the old house and now this is the new house. So we want to move the dot from here to here. You write your description of what your evidence is. You can add your evidence, and then you certify that everything is truthful, and you submit. For an availability challenge, for example, internet speeds and your service providers not fulfilling their obligations, you can click on availability challenge and you'll notice it says provider down up. So let's say it's Charter, for example. Let's select. They're the ones that, you can send your challenge to the selected provider, or you can just give feedback without submitting a challenge. In order to submit an availability challenge, it will go to the provider because the provider does have to rebuttal your challenge, your name, your email, your phone number, but it also goes to the FCC as well. You describe your experience, you upload your evidence, and you submit. And that's it for fixed broadband. If you go for mobile, if you want to do a mobile challenge, so let's say you have 3G, 4G, or 5G internet, and it's not in the area, but it says it's in your area. You can download the speed test app, either from your app store or from Google Play. You'll notice that this is the logo for the app. It's original -FCC speed test. And once you have that on your phone, you can drive by your house or walk by your house or anywhere else you think that says it has signal, but it does not. And it will test the speed of that. And then it will submit the challenges for you via the app. And with that, I'll throw it back to Garrett.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Sorry, it took me a second to get it back on my screen. Thank you, Adam and Aaron, again for that great information and to go through the different types of challenges and what that FCC map, what that looks like and what a challenge does. I'm definitely gonna start messing around, throwing in my address, grandparents' address, uncle, nephew, everybody, to see what's in that area to explore and see if it's true from what they're saying with those test speeds and all. So with this portion of it, we do want to transition to a Q&A session where feel free to unmute and ask any questions. Kind of going to look at the chat a little bit to see what was in there. But if there was anything that came up here in this webinar or some of the things that we showed you, if there's anything kind of coming to mind, now's the time to share it with us, and we can definitely troubleshoot through those. Give it a few seconds here because I know I have questions, but I definitely want to open the floor to some of our participants. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of dive in and throw some at you, Adam and Aaron. So I hope you're ready. So as I mentioned, earlier, I'm gonna look on this map and explore. And after I file a challenge, like after I go through there, get my evidence, get my screenshots, get everything together and organized, and throw it to the FCC. What does that look like? What can I expect after I make this challenge? What's that look like?
Yeah, certainly. So what happens when you actually make a challenge and you submit it with your evidence? You should be hearing via email from the FCC within a few days, acknowledging that they received your challenge. They will do a little bit of preliminary research, depending on the type of challenge that it is. Excuse me. And as long as it is not rejected, based on a few items that they kind of tick off, it will go to the provider. So, and then there's some time frames. So the provider is going to have 60 days to respond to your challenge. And what they're going to do is they're either going to say, yes, it's valid and make changes to the availability map, or they're going to reject or rebut the challenge providing their own evidence. And this is all going to happen through email um, with you. And, they're probably going to ask you some more questions or, um, hopefully with the final effort, it will help bring more broadband to your area. So, if you're a little community off on the, rural, off on the side of a hill or whatever, if you guys can get together with your community members, the FCC, they really did stress to us that when these challenges come in groups, it it doesn't, they're not going to say that it weighs heavier, but it really makes them take a look at these areas more. So, yeah, we really kind of we got that impression from the FCC, and so that's what we're gathering you guys together to do. So if you're a community advocate or you're involved in broadband in your community, um, we hope that you'll kind of use this system in the way that it was intended by the FCC, which is, to really inform, lawmakers and funding institutions to help with the digital equity in your community. So it is kind of a process of going back and forth, but hopefully, if you do a challenge, you'll be successful and yeah, affect some change there.
That's awesome. And that's what, kind of
Oh
to
shoot,
also
I forgot the
highlight
camera.
what makes this so important is to, what are the internet service providers saying about my community versus what I'm actually boots on the ground seeing and
Hmm.
can actually test and, kind of debate and dispute some of that, information and what, that actual image is. Cool. Okay.
Exactly. And
That's
what
great.
we did find in the data is that um, a lot of a lot of the information that they have is incorrect. So we're doing our best to challenge it on behalf of the PTRC and for location challenges on the mapping and GIS side. But as Adam alluded to, really the availability challenge is something that someone who lives in that house is going to have to do. We can only do so much on the mapping side when it comes to the ISP providers holding them to account, um, for their claims. So I just wanted to reiterate that we need the community to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know kind of around PTRC here, there's a lot of new neighborhoods and new houses going up, and does the map show some of these new
Hmm.
constructions or new areas? We're just always constantly changing. So I think this is
Hmm.
great to report all that we can. Okay. Well, thank you. Next question, I guess, or kind of where I'm at now. Is there somewhere to get additional help for making these challenges? So, if I am kind of struggling, or oh man, is this evidence good evidence? What's good evidence? What's bad? Is there any way that the FCC has kind of resources or some kind of help with making these?
Yeah, absolutely. I can, I don't know if, I guess I could try to share my screen here, but I think Chris is going to put the link in the chat for the FCC Get Help. Um, so they just ask you a few questions, your email address, your subject for your email. And once you pick that you are a consumer, so a consumer is a member of the public, a citizen, um, they'll give you some issues to choose from. Are you checking on the status of a challenge? Do you need more information or help in submitting a challenge? Those come up immediately in the form. So, and then you can just type out your question. And honestly, in our experience, you would not think this, but the FCC has actually been very responsive throughout this project. To us because they have a mandate um, to try to get this broadband information accurate for all of the metrics and the data coming out about communities, so they do kind of have an interest in so I would encourage you if you have any problems after this webinar, um, you could reach out to them directly. And then also, Garrett, I think you said that you would be happy to help answer questions too from the public. Is that still correct?
Yes, absolutely. So after the webinar is wrapped up and you're go and explore some of these tools or tell some people about it in your departments and all, I will put my contact info in the chat kind of toward the end of the webinar to kind of be that person, that contact that you can reach out to for additional help or maybe you need to ask a question or have me clarify whatever you were thinking for the webinar. Absolutely. Great. So, we've made our challenge. There's additional resources to help those because, again, we're all at digital literacy skill, levels. And we see that in our communities as well. Some people's really comfortable with technology and doing these apps on their phones and all, and others are a little bit more hesitant. So that's good that there's resources to support everybody where they are. That's awesome. Is there any kind of submission deadlines or I guess how often does the FCC review these challenges? Is it kind of daily or here and there? Or what does that look like, I guess, in those terms?
Hey, Garrett, I can help answer that one. The submission deadlines, so you can submit a challenge at any time. Pretty much you can go home now or if you're at home, go ahead and sign in and do it if you really do want to. But there are rolling dates for updating the mapping fabric itself. So you may not see your dot change immediately because the ISPs, the internet service providers, have to have the chance to say, hey, and produce their own evidence that they do not service that location or whatnot. But you will still continue to be in correspondence via the sign in and also by your email as well of everything that's going on. But normally the big bulk changes to the fabric maps are normally in say May or June and then November and December around those areas.
Okay, gotcha.
So
That's good to know. Okay.
the FCC has a rolling, like a versioning every 6 months. They're either updating the locations or the availability data set. So those are the two that kind of drive what they call the fabric. So yeah, every 6 months they do wholesale changes and new versions of the data that they publish to the broadband map. So
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so I've made my challenge. I've had all the resources to support me. I now know I can do this at any time, or I can take a few months to kind of get all, my ducks in a row, so to speak, on making this challenge. So, what happens if I win? So, if I dispute the internet speed, for example, and it does show clear that what the internet service provider is saying is incorrect. What's that next step? Does confetti fall down? Like, what happens if I win? And what does the internet service provider do to mitigate this challenge? I guess.
I wish it would be awesome as confetti coming down and the trumpets going off. But so the ISP challenge, and then basically FCC now holds that ISP accountable for that location. That location, technically, if they don't really serve that location, for example, but they said they did, then there might be some fines and penalties on their side with the FCC, but it really has nothing. Unfortunately, it just fixes the map. But if the ISP, for example, does service that area and denied it, for example, or maybe their evidence didn't work, then they're now forced to go fix that issue as well. So there's that as too. Number 3, though, this map also is very important as a whole. So if your area, for example, let's say your neighborhood is all suffering from the same kind of speeds and an ISP or an internet service provider is not providing what you need for this area, then you're now an underserved area, basically. And the more underserved areas there are, the more funding that can come to your community to bring in other ISPs, hopefully more reliable ISPs than ones that are lying on the map, if they are. And because they'll, and hopefully that, we'll finally get everybody up to speed, pun intended.
Thank you, Adam. That was very helpful. Thank you for kind of running all that through for me. So I know I've kind of dominated some of this Q&A session, so I do apologize. I need to go ahead and kind of take a step back. It's just once I got going, I just kept firing them at you. So thank you, Aaron and Adam, for dissecting those questions with me and helping me out. For others of us on here, if you have a question, you can, like I said, feel free to unmute and kind of ask it, or if you'd rather use the chat feature, that's fine too. We are monitoring that and are happy to, help with any kind of questions you might have. So we'll kind of open the floor again for that. Okay, not everyone at once now. All right. Well, if everyone's comfortable and feeling good with this information and with that, we can transition and sort of move on into the next steps with our webinar today. So to kind of go ahead and throw that up for you. All right, so next step. So again, we urge everyone to take advantage of these tools and simply keep the internet service providers honest and verify the data, verify what they're saying. And if there's a dispute, and then, bring it up to the table, bring it up to discussion. Because as Aaron and Adam mentioned, the FCC is very open to exploring and going through these challenges and seeing what's going on in your community. So we definitely want to, take advantage of that resource. So go and create an account for the broadband data collection system. I think Adam kind of showed you when he pulled up the map, sort of the sign-in bar. You just go over there, create an account. I think it's very simple questions as you would to create any kind of account for any sort of service out there. So make an account, and then that way you can have access to your home, residency, the streets, and all that Adam was definitely taking us through and showing us. And again, start researching your address, family member's address, and see if there's a challenge that could possibly be made. We will use this as another reminder that this webinar is being recorded and it's going to be available on PTRC's website. The QR code there on the screen, if you was to kind of scan that with your phone, it will take you directly to the web page of PTRC, which this will reside. Right now, it's just kind of the registration windows and a little bit of information about the project. But again, once we have time to get this recording all polished, we will post it there. And that way you can come back and refer to the resources that Adam and Aaron shared today and kind of go through that process. And we'll definitely do that. And again, I will put my contact information in the chat. I'll go ahead and do that now. That way you can have it if you find any kind of questions or want to troubleshoot anything with me, or I can connect you with HDR folks as well. So again, the next steps for us is we are going to be hosting a GIS professionals training. It's going to be a little bit more tailored to folks that's more in the nitty-gritty of this type of work. And we're going to have that for folks all across the region. So if you know of someone in that field or someone within your apartment or someone, that would benefit from that training, please send them our way. Please, again, use that QR code to get to the portal for you to register. We'd love to see you then. And again, please send them our way. We're excited to continue this effort of advancing broadband and digital equity with in the Piedmont Triad communities. And again, thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you learned something and can take something of value with these resources shared. And we'd love to see some of you again for our next training, where we can dive a little bit more into making these challenges and the application that HDR has done a fabulous job of building out and making this process even easier. So with that, we will go ahead, like I said, and wrap up. We are finishing a little earlier today, so trying to give you a little bit of that time back. But again, thank you for your attendance and letting us share these great resources, because again, we're just trying to get the word out and trying to make sure our communities are represented as accurately as we can, because digital equity and broadband is a very hot topic right now, because for a lot of us, if the internet connection is not well, it affects maybe your work. If you have kids doing e-learning or any kind of assignments online, it does affect us in a lot of ways, especially with the way our world is interconnected right now. I do all of my banking, all of my services online, so strong broadband services is very important, especially in my life. So I'm sure it is for everyone else. So with that, we can go ahead and wrap up here. So thank you again, and we'll go ahead and if there's any last questions, please speak now. Throw it in the chat, and we'll move on.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say awesome job, Garrett. Appreciate you running the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be tired of my voice by the end of this.
Never.
It was a little talk heavy today, but you know, I'm just excited to explore this type of research and data. It's, like I said, it's really important to my community and my life. So I do take pride in learning as much as I can about this process.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, again, I will go ahead and end the webinar, and we will move on. Again, if there's any last minute questions, anything that comes up, my contact information is in the chat, or you can go to like ptrc.org and find my contact information there, and I'd be happy to assist you with anything further. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Great afternoon.